Monday. The sacred day of corporate betrayal and reheated disappointment. I walked into the office already armed with 3 shots of instant coffee and 1 full-body existential crisis, only to be greeted with those 4 terrifying words from the director. Can we have a chat? Translation, we're about to ruin your life, but we'll be using soothing HR language and a condescending smile to do it. Now, the director, let's call him Gavin. Because of course he's a Gavin, is the kind of man who thinks leadership involves quoting Elon Musk on productivity while silently judging your Tesco meal deal choices. A man who once called a 14-hour shift a growth opportunity and referred to burnout as a mindset problem. You get the type. So Gavin ushers me into a glass meeting room. Because nothing says privacy like transparent walls and passive-aggressive glances from the intern. He gives me that smile. You know the one. The I've already decided your fate, but I'm pretending it hurts me more than it hurts you smile. Spoiler, it doesn't. He starts with, we really appreciate all you've done here, which is basically corporate foreplay 4. Get out and take your dignity with you, if you can find it. He then hits me with a full breakup monologue. It's just not the right fit going forward. The company's shifting. We're restructuring. Which, fun fact, all means you're too competent and we're too cheap to keep you. And just when I think it couldn't get more farcical, he actually says, and I quote, "Congratulations, you're terminated. Congratulations." As if I've just won a bloody tombola in the prize. Is unemployment in a therapy bill? So I nod. Because if I open my mouth, something deeply unprofessional and probably Latin will come out. Instead, I hand over my company laptop like it's a cursed artifact from an Indiana Jones film. He has no idea it's still holding a secret, but we'll get to that. And of course, HR's already waiting outside. Like an emotionally detached Grim Reaper with a clipboard. They give me a packet of tissues, a printed copy of my severance package, and a weak smile that says, please don't cry. I haven't had lunch yet. But here's the thing. I didn't cry. I smiled. Not because I'm emotionally stable. Don't be ridiculous. But because something was about to happen. Something I may or may not have planted 6 months ago. During an especially rage-fueled all-nighter. Involving Red Bull and pure spite. So while Gavin was patting himself on the back for cleaning house, I was already counting down. 10 minutes. That's all it would take. 10 minutes until the first domino fell. 10 minutes until the real congratulations were in order. You see, I didn't just code. Oh no, I cared. Big mistake. Rookie error. 0 tenths would not recommend. Because in the world of corporate tech, caring is a liability. It means you'll end up debugging other people's emotional breakdowns in their Python scripts, usually at 2 a.m. on a Saturday while eating crisps. You found behind your monitor and wondering if this is what your career's advisor had in mind. And yet, I still did it. I poured my sleep-deprived soul into that codebase. I spent months of unpaid overtime because it's a startup and apparently, experience is its own reward, right? Crafting a system so smooth, so perfectly balanced, it practically hummed. But I didn't stop there. Oh no, darling. I built a protocol. A quiet little line of logic. A whisper in the machine. Something so well hidden even the senior dev, who once confused a merge conflict for a Wi-Fi issue, wouldn't spot it if it danced naked in his terminal. On the surface, it was nothing. A safety check. A fallback. A cute little contingency tucked beneath layers of optimization scripts and legacy routines. No one dared touch because, and I quote, if it's not broken, don't breathe near it. But this wasn't just a failsafe. It was a digital landmine. Timed, precise, untouchable. And the best part, only I could disable it. You know how artists leave hidden signatures in their work? Yeah, that was me except instead of brushstrokes. Mine was a conditional trigger, hidden beneath a pile of documentation. So aggressively boring, it could kill small rodents. Why? Because deep down, somewhere between the third, mandated Well-Being Wednesday, and being told my job was lucky to exist in this market, I realized something. If you're going to give a job your soul, you might as well leave a ghost behind. So I built my revenge not with rage, but with code. Carefully, quietly, beautifully. It didn't scream. It didn't shout. It waited. Like me. Waiting for the moment they'd fire me, toss me aside, and try to parade my work in front of investors. Like it hadn't been held together with caffeine, duct tape, and sheer contempt. And when that moment finally came, well, the protocol already knew what to do. 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes. And they'd learn what happens when you fire. The only person who knows where the bodies and the back-end scripts are buried. So there I was, laptop handed over. Career ceremonially flushed. And self-esteem politely ghosted by HR when Gavin, the director, that walking LinkedIn quote machine, decides now is the time for a heart-to-heart. He leans across the table, all fake empathy and posturing. The kind of man who thinks watching one TED Talk qualifies as emotional intelligence. And with the most punchable grin says, "Good luck out there. Not everyone's cut out for this place." Right. Not everyone's cut out for this place. This place where the coffee tastes like despair. The meetings could legally be classified as sleep aids. And the culture is so fast-paced, it's basically a conveyor belt to burnout. Yeah, you're right. Gavin, it takes a special kind of masochist to survive here. And guess who did it on 3 hours of sleep? 3 years straight and a salary that wouldn't buy a London sandwich meal? Me. I kept this company running on spit, cable ties, and my increasingly fragile will to live. I've debugged things no sane human should ever have to look at, including Gavin's business logic. I've written code with half a brain cell while simultaneously moderating a Slack argument about whether pineapple belongs on pizza. So yes, Gavin, do go on, flex. Tell me how I just wasn't the right fit. Tell me how my energy didn't align with the future of the company. Meanwhile, the company's entire backend is still being powered by scripts I wrote in a state of caffeinated psychosis during lockdown. But I digress. I gave him the smile. Not a warm one. Not a friendly one. Not even one that says, "I'll miss this." No, this was a controlled, slow, possibly unstable smile. The kind of smile you see from people in documentaries, who say things like, "I just snapped." "Good luck with the investor presentation tomorrow," I said. Smooth, calm, even polite. But we both knew the truth. There was no tomorrow. The investor demo? It was in 10 minutes. 10 delicious, glorious, beautifully orchestrated minutes. And Gavin? He just smiled right back. All smug and satisfied like he'd just solved world peace by firing me. Poor man. He had absolutely no idea he was standing on a digital trapdoor, built by the very person he'd just sacked. Honestly, if it weren't so tragic, I'd almost feel bad. Almost. Ah yes, the classic final act of the corporate firing ritual, the walk of shame, escorted by not one but 2 security guards. Because clearly I was now a high-level threat to the company, a rogue agent, a digital anarchist, or more accurately, an underpaid developer with a grudge and suspiciously good posture for someone who hadn't seen sunlight since February. The guards didn't say much, probably briefed to avoid eye contact with the unstable tech employee. I don't blame them if I were them. I wouldn't trust anyone holding a reusable coffee cup and 14 months of suppressed rage either. They flanked me like I was about to start throwing office chairs or start yelling about justice in the break room. I didn't. I was calm, peaceful, possibly radiating the kind of eerie serenity one feels just before a storm hits and ruins your boss's entire afternoon. As we walked through the open plan office, a battlefield of passive-aggressive post-its and ergonomic despair, I smiled. A real one this time. Not the smile you force at performance reviews, or when someone says, "Let's circle back." No, this was the smile of a person finally free. The smile of someone who knows what's coming and has already made their peace with it, and also renamed half the critical backend systems something deeply unhelpful like final_boss_final_final_really_final opening parenthesis 3 closing parenthesis .py. We passed reception. I gave them a jaunty little wave, the kind you give when you're either completely fine or seconds away from becoming a headline. The receptionist blinked. She knew something was up. That woman's seen 7 restructures and 3 nervous breakdowns. She could smell chaos like a bloodhound. I gave the office plant a pat on the way out. Not even joking. That peace lily has seen things. Late nights. Silent tears. Full-scale caffeine overdoses. I whispered, "You deserve better," and moved on. Then came the lift. The sacred metal coffin of awkward silence. The doors closed. No more eyes. No more pretense. And I started counting. 10, 9, 8. Somewhere on the 3rd floor, someone was clicking through the investor deck, preparing to unveil my system, my architecture, my blood, sweat, and emotional disintegration disguised as agile development. 5, 4. Someone in DevOps would be realizing that the dashboard wasn't loading. The UI wasn't responding. And the data, oh, the lovely, carefully curated, demo-ready data was starting to blink out like a dying Christmas light. 3. Gavin would be pacing. "Just refresh it," he'd say. Classic, as if hitting F5 fixes sabotage. 2. The screen would flicker. The graphs would vanish. And in their place, my little message. White text. Black screen. Simple. Maybe you should have paid me for those 37 weekend builds. 1. Ding. Ground floor. I walked out like nothing had happened, which was technically true. Nothing had happened. And that, ironically, was the problem they were now facing. No, I'm not saying I watched it happen. That would have been unprofessional. I'm just saying, someone somewhere in a dark corner of the internet might have sent me an anonymous Slack message later, no name, no punctuation, just, "Mate, it's happening." Apparently, the demos started off fine. Beautiful, even. 6 glorious minutes of smug smiles, buzzword-heavy hand gestures, and Gavin pretending he understood the tech stack. Investors were nodding. People were relaxed. Someone probably even said synergy without choking. And then, at precisely minute 7, like clockwork, because I am nothing if not extremely petty and overly precise, the portal went blank. Just gone. No data, no graphs. No reassuring dashboards or glowing metrics to hypnotize the money people. Just darkness. And then, slowly, sound. Not a warning tone. Not even the default system beep. No, the audio kicked in with elevator music. Smooth jazz. The kind you hear in dentists' waiting rooms or on hold with HMRC. The kind that makes you question your life choices. Then came the video. A placeholder file. A little gem I'd left tucked away in the back end like a ticking. Time bomb with a cheery smile. File name, do underscore not underscore touch underscore final V2. Yes, all caps. Because if there's one thing everyone in tech knows, it's that files with names like that are sacred, untouchable, dangerously ambiguous. The video was a loading animation, but not just any loading animation. It was a floating, spinning, poorly animated potato. Yes, a potato, rotating in a void, with eyes, and in a lovely, deadpan robotic voice. Think BBC. Newsreader meets. Passive-aggressive Siri, it said. Error 409, you should have been nicer. Looped. Over and over. For 15 minutes. And here's the best part, they couldn't stop it. Because the failsafe wasn't in the code. It was in the deployment layer. Buried beneath so many nested containers. Their dev team would have had to sacrifice a Go and recite the GitHub terms of service backwards just to find it. The investors? Stone-faced. One apparently leaned over and said, "Is this performance art?" And Gavin? Oh, Gavin. I'm told his face did that thing men's faces do. When they're trying not to cry in a meeting, you know? That kite jaw, heavy blinking. One dash nostril dash flaring kind of look. Beautiful. Cinematic. The whole thing was shut down eventually. Hard reset. Full reboot. But by then, the moment was gone. The money people had seen behind the curtain. And what they saw was a floating potato, passive-aggressively judging their investment strategy. Honestly, that potato said what I couldn't. No, I wasn't in the boardroom, obviously, but I've got a vivid imagination and a few very salty ex-colleagues with loose thumbs and excellent screenshot game. So let's set the scene. A sleek, overpriced boardroom. One of those glass cages of eco. And air conditioning where no one ever actually eats. They cater croissants. Investors on one side of the table dressed like business casual sharks. Management on the other side, less shark. More salmon on its way upstream, already half-eaten. At the head of the table, the director. Once so smug, now visibly damp. Sweating like a politician mid-scandal. Dabbing his forehead with a napkin that absolutely wasn't designed for skin contact. His visionary leader. Energy had rapidly declined into confused substitute teacher, who's lost control of year 9. The CTO? Apparently muttering to himself in hexadecimal. At one point, he physically unplugged a server rack, as if this was a haunted house and not a multi-million-pound tech pitch. Someone tried a reboot, classic. Restarted the system like it was an old N64 cartridge. Investors waited. Polite, British. One of them even offered a tight-lipped technology, Translation: if I don't see a working product in 30 seconds, I'm moving my money to crypto and regret. And behind all this panic? My protocol. A beautifully chaotic mess of recursive logic, encrypted triggers, and spite. Designed, built, during one of my lowest points. A 48-hour coding marathon fueled by microwave noodles. Existential dread. And 2 liters of instant coffee. So strong it could have legally been classified as industrial solvent. And to make matters worse, I wrote most of it while my flat was flooding. Yes, literally flooding. I was sat in a kitchen chair in the middle of the living room like some kind of wet, furious Shakespearean coder, yelling at the boiler and writing. Sabotage into a system I knew they'd one day try to pitch without me. So no, there was no backdoor. There was no override. There was no charming prodigy in a hoodie, about to save the day with a clever hack and a hopeful soundtrack swell. Because I documented nothing. There was no trail. No roadmap. No salvation. Just chaos wrapped in spaghetti code, dipped in sarcasm, and encrypted with a password even I don't remember anymore. It was probably something like you underscore should underscore have underscore paid underscore me 123 dot closing parenthesis. Golden Boy Dev? You know the type. Confident. Frash still thinks Jira is fun. He apparently tried to untangle my code for a full hour before declaring it hostile and retreating to the toilet for an emotional support vape. The final blow? The potato came back. After a brief blackout, the video returned now with a second message. Still loading. Maybe call your ex-employee? Chef's kiss. Apparently, that's when one investor actually laughed. Not a joyful laugh, the kind of soft, despairing wheeze that says, I've made terrible decisions, but at least I'm not the CTO. Ah yes, the fallout. A moment so pure, so vindicating. I briefly considered framing the timestamp on Slack just to remember where I was when the chaos really bloomed. Spoiler, I was on the sofa, in a hoodie that hadn't seen daylight in 3 days. Eating prawn cocktail crisps like they were the Eucharist. They tried to reach me. Oh, how they tried. First, it was an email titled Urgent Quick Chat. Classic, nothing good ever follows quick chat. It's the professional version of we need to talk, but with worse lighting and fewer emotions. I ignored it. Then came a text. Hey, just wondering if you might have a minute to talk about the system? No worries if not. The passive-aggressive emoji really sold it. They were already cracking. Next, LinkedIn. An actual LinkedIn message. From the director himself, which read, and I quote, Hi, redacted, hope you're well. We seem to be experiencing some issues with the platform you worked on. Any insight would be hugely appreciated. Let me know if we can hop on a quick call. The man who fired me with a smirk had finally learned to type, hope you're well, with the trembling fingers of defeat. Tragic, really. And me? Oh, I was so busy. busy watching their investor demo implode from my living room, wrapped in a blanket of petty joy, sipping lukewarm tea and laughing like a Victorian. Widow who'd just inherited her husband's estate. They had to postpone the demo. Postpone is such a nice word, isn't it? So elegant, so non-threatening, as if they popped to the shops and simply lost track of time rather than having the business. Equivalent of a controlled detonation in front of the very people funding their existence. The investors? Gone. Pulled out faster than the director's confidence in a crisis. Apparently, one of them cited lack of technical stability and organizational readiness, which is investor speak for. We're not giving money to people who get bested by animated tubers. And the memo. Oh God, the memo. An all-staff email titled, Technical Difficulties During Investor Demo, Team Update. In it, the director solemnly blamed an unforeseen back-end malfunction triggered by legacy system anomalies, which, when translated from corporate to human, reads, The underpaid goblin we fired knew exactly where to hit us. And frankly, we deserve it. I especially enjoyed the part where he thanked the dev team for rallying during uncertain moments. Rallying, in this case, being defined as panicking, unplugging everything, and Googling how to stop potato video infinite loop somewhere in that company Slack. I imagine the emoji reactions were a glorious combination of, and you know what? I earned every pixel of that digital inferno. Just when I thought I was finally out, they dragged me right back in. Not they as in management, no. Those lot were probably too busy, hyperventilating into branded mugs and trying to reverse engineer my code using prayer and panic, and talking about the survivors, the ex-coworkers still trapped in that open plan purgatory of forced birthdays, fridge theft, and passive-aggressive sticky notes about microwave usage. It started innocently enough, a single Slack ping, then another, and before I knew it, the group chat was resurrected like some kind of corporate seance gone wrong. Apparently, I was the ghost they'd summoned, haunting the back end, the sprint board, and now, their conversations. Myra messaged first, bless her. Always far too clever to be that criminally underpaid. She simply wrote, You absolute legend. The demo melted. I think the director aged 5 years in 10 minutes. I responded in the only way that felt appropriate, the ghost emoji. Because at this point, I wasn't a person anymore. I was folklore. Then came Tom, the finance guy who once tried to expense novelty socks as ergonomic support wear. He wrote, Mate, it's chaos here without you. James cried in the break room. And here's the best bit, James is the same guy who once told me, completely unprompted, that emotions were a liability. So here he'd been emotionally dismantled by my former codebase? That was the closest thing I've had to therapy in years. I didn't even reply with words. Just a single the potato emoji. No context. No follow-up. And somehow, they all understood. That's when I realized I'd ascended. I wasn't just an ex-employee anymore, I was a myth. A digital legend. A spectral warning whispered to interns. Don't mess with the dev, or you'll get a potato. Apparently, they even started calling bugs potential potatoes. I should have trademarked it, honestly. As the chat dissolved into memes, GIFs, and chaotic cries for help disguised as humor, I sat back on my sofa, wrapped myself in a blanket of righteous pettiness, and sipped my tea like the overlooked villain in a very British drama. Maybe burnout was worth it, just for this moment. So after basking in the sweet chaos I'd unleashed and nursing a suspiciously expensive takeaway, I figured the universe had closed the door on me. Not with a bang, but a thoroughly underwhelming whimper from the director's inbox marked for your eyes only. But lo and behold, just as I was perfecting my unemployed but highly sarcastic LinkedIn bio, a message popped up. Not from a mate, not from my mom, from a recruiter. And not just any recruiter, the one from a firm so shiny it made my old job look like a damp cardboard box in comparison. They slid into my inbox smoother than a barista's best flat white and said, "We heard about your incident. We like your style. Fancy a chat?" Apparently, one of the investors, the ones I quietly sabotaged with my little potato-powered coup, had been sufficiently impressed by my grace under fire and had whispered my name into the right ears. I was wanted. With benefits. With pay that didn't make me consider selling my organs on the black market. With respect. Wild concept, I know. Cue my inner monologue, which sounded suspiciously like a sarcastic late-night DJ. "Oh, so now you want me?" When the websites? On fire and the CEO's Googling. How to hire a ghost in the machine. Cheers for the timing, mate. But here's the kicker, I actually wanted to go. Not just for the paycheck, though it was glorious. Not just for the respect, which felt like discovering what a warm bath is after. Years of cold showers. But for the validation. The sweet, undeniable proof that sometimes the world does make sense. If you just wait long enough for karma to update its software. So I said yes. I scheduled the call. I dusted off my suit, okay? I ironed the shirt. And I walked into the next chapter with a grin that said, I may have been fired, but I'm definitely not finished. So here we are at the grand finale. Yes, I was terminated. The word itself sounds like a line from a dodgy action movie. You're terminated. And honestly, it fits better than the reality. A corporate euthanasia gently disguised as a strategic realignment. But let's not forget the real kicker. I also terminated the most important investor demo. Not with a bang, but with a smug little potato animation and some chef's kiss elevator music. Because if you're going to be fired, why not make sure they feel it in their spreadsheets and shareholder hearts? Do I regret it? Well, that depends on the day and how much tea I've had. I've probably deleted the protocol now. Or maybe it's still lurking somewhere. Like a digital ghost with a wicked sense of humor, waiting for the perfect moment to haunt their next quarterly review. Don't worry, I'm benevolent. Most of the time. Here's the moral, because every good story needs one. Even if the universe is busy laughing at your misfortune, always be kind to the developer. We're the ones who build the system. We're the quiet puppeteers behind your fancy dashboards and your seamless user experience. And if we break, well, the systems break too. So next time you want to yell at IT because your Zoom froze or your email won't send, remember this tale. Because behind every "it's not working" is a human who probably didn't get paid enough and might just have a little hidden coal. And if you're lucky or unlucky, you'll never meet them. But if you do, smile. Be nice, or else